Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to show you how you can create a template like this in Google Sheets to track trending tickers, currency information, Bitcoin, word of the day, news articles, all sorts of information in just one place. And I've made it compact like this so it's easy to view from your mobile device. So I'm going to show you how we can set that up from start to finish. So let's get started. So one of the first things I'm going to do is pull in trending tickers. So you can create a custom watch list of stocks you want to track. But in this example, I'm just going to pull data from a site called apewisdom.io/Wall Street Bets. So this shows you the most discussed stocks on the Wall Street Bets subreddit in the past 24 hours. So it gives you a good snapshot of what people are talking about, what's popular in the markets right now. So I'm going to use this URL, apewisdom.io/Wall Street Bets, and use that in Google Sheets. So I'm going to use the import HTML function, and I'll select that URL for the apewisdom.io/Wall Street Bets. And so for the query, because it's in a table format, I'm going to type in table, and I'm going to grab that first table. So when you're using import HTML, it's not always going to be in this exact format. It depends on how that web page is set up. So this isn't guaranteed to work in every situation the exact same way. In one case, it may be the second table, the third table. In some case, it might not be in a table format. But in this case, it does work. So I'm just going to show you how that pulls in. So we have to allow access to get the data from a third-party site. So now we've got our list in here. Now this is not a format that I want to use right away because I just need to clean this up a bit because I've got spaces and I don't want all of this data onto my template. So an easy way to filter out the information I need is by using the filter function. So I'm going to select my entire range of ticker symbols that I want to pull in. So I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom. It's always going to have about 100 in here. So I'm going to use that filter function. And then my condition, I'm going to just check if there is a number in that change. So is number in that change field right here in the past 24 hours, as long as there's a number, because anything that doesn't have a number is not what I want. So in this case, actually, I'll use the mentions here so I see some NA values here. So I just want to make sure that these are in fact numbers. Select that range. And now it's going to give me just a list of the ticker symbols that were from there. So much cleaner look there. Next, what I'm going to do is pull in the percent change for the current day. And to do that, I'm going to use the Google Finance function, reference the ticker, and I'm going to use the attribute called change percentage. It's going to give me the change percentage for this day. Now it's going to put this into a raw number, not a percentage. So I'm going to divide this by 100. And now convert that into a percentage. And now I can copy this down. Whoops. So I've got a copy down. I've got my percentages in there. So I've got the tickers and their percent changes. Now, what I'm going to do now is sort this list. So I've got from highest to lowest. So I've got the best performing stocks up at the bottom, at the top, and the poor performing ones at the bottom. So Google Sheets has a function for this called sort. And so I can select my range. And so I'm going to select both of these columns, or the bottom here, and then I'm going to sort them based on the values in column K. And it's asking me if I'm doing ascending order, which is false. I want descending. And so now I've got the highest going down to the lowest. So I've got them sorted. Now, obviously, you could try to combine this into one large function, but I like spreading it out just so it's a lot clearer to see that I've got all the information. You could always hide columns if you need them, but that's how we can set it up so we've got them in sorting order going from largest to small, so we can see of the trending tickers which ones did the best, which ones have been performing very well today versus which ones have been not doing so well today. So now I'm going to use this information and start populating my dashboard. So I'm going to call this sheet just my data sheet, just because it's a lot cleaner to have this on another tab, and I'll create another one for my actual dashboard, right, my main one. And so here, what I'm going to pull in are those top tickers. So I'm going to make a space for the top 25 that I want to track. Obviously, you can adjust this to however many you want, but I'm going to stick with 25 for now. And so I'm going to create a section called trending tickers here. and I'm going to make it span multiple columns here so I can stretch it out and center it. Now, to make this work well on a mobile device, what you're going to want to do is adjust the column width so it's not too wide and so that you can see all your data in your cell phone. So what I found is to resize these columns to about 75 pixels. That's what I found is an optimal fit there. And then I'm going to shrink column A just so it's not starting right at the edge. So I've got my space here for my different stock symbols. So what I'm going to do is go back to that data sheet and link to my top performing stocks. So I've got M1, right? So I can pull in these other ones on here. So it can be a little bit of a tedious process just to set this up initially. But once you've done it, it's just a one-time thing to do. And so I've got my top 5. Then below that, I'm going to put their performances for the day as well. So this is just the one part that's going to be a little bit tedious in setting up. But once you've got it, you don't have to repeat this again. And as you can see, I'm just making sure that I'm lining up everything in accordance to where they are. And actually what I could even do is just do a VLOOKUP as well. And actually that'd probably be a bit easier. You just do a VLOOKUP, search that value, and second column, set it to false. And so we've got my percentage. The key thing is just freezing that. And so we can get the same results. So minimize some of that data entry. So now what I can do is copy this down. And now we've got, in this case, I just want to make sure this was 5. So this should be 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So again, just following that sort of sequence to make sure that we've got that flowing in properly. So we've got that set up. It's a bit tricky because we're going sideways here. But again, it's just a one-time effort that we need to do to set this up to make sure that it's done, because the tricky part is it's not consecutive one after another, so it just takes a bit of setting up. But that VLOOKUP function though is going to help make that process a bit easier. Next, what I'm going to do is spend some time cleaning up the formatting here. So I'm going to make these rows a bit wider. So resize them to about 30 pixels. Again, the point is to make this easy to read on a mobile device and screen, so it's not too difficult. You don't have to squint or anything like that. So I'm going to bold that and do the same thing for the header here. Also, to help focus my attention, I'm going to turn off the grid lines by going to View, Show, and then unchecking grid lines. It's not going to be a bit cleaner, but now it looks a bit still not ideal here. So what I'm going to do is set up the formatting for the first 2 rows and copy that down to the other ones. So I'm going to create some boxes around these values here, just so it's clear where we've got our start and end points for these different stocks, these different tickers and their values. So I only have to do this for the first row, and then I'm going to copy that down. So I've got that set up. So that's a little helpful. But what this needs is some conditional formatting as well to help highlight which ones are doing really well versus which ones are not. So I'm going to select this entire row again. Actually, the first row, because I'm going to have to create 2 sets of conditional formatting rules. And I'm going to show you why in a second. So I'm going to format, conditional formatting. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply a formula here. So I'm going to say a custom formula and say the value below. So I'm not looking at row 2, I'm looking at row 3. So my first value is in B2, so I'm looking at B3. So I'm going to say equals B3 is greater than, let's say, 0.1, so more than 10%. And if that's the case, I'm going to make it a bright green color. So all these are more than 10%, so they're all bright green. So that's my first rule for that. Now to create a second rule, because these ones below need to be highlighted as well, the actual percentages. But in that case, they're going to be looking at those same values, which is why we need two sets of conditional formatting rules. But I'm also going to create another rule to do this for other types of scenarios. So I've got that one rule, but what I can do is create another rule. And if you do it this way by creating another rule, it's going to create your rule in the same format. So I've got B3 greater than 0.1. So I'm going to just change this to 0.05, so 5%. In that case, perhaps I'll use a lighter shade of green just to make it stand out. And here you can see the formatting, what it's going to look like. Let's create another rule. Let's say if it's greater than, just greater than 0. Then in that case, I'll just leave it as a white formatting. And then lastly, if it's less than 0, then I can make this red. Actually, no, the paint bucket should be red. The font should be white. There we go. And now I've got that set up. And I guess I should adjust this one so it's greater than or equal to 0, so we capture all the conditions here. Greater than equal to 5, and then greater than or equal to 10. And so to make sure these rules are set up properly, I'm going to put the -1 at the top, followed by the other conditions, just to make sure that they're not mistakenly applied incorrectly, because one of the conditions hits, then the other ones may not apply correctly. So it's important to put it in the right sort of format. So if your conditional formatting doesn't look like it's setting up or applying the same rules, make sure to pay attention to that hierarchy and how they're applied. So now that I've done that for the top row, I'm going to repeat the process for the bottom row. So select these values and then create a conditional formatting rule. In this case, we're looking at B3 to F3, which is correct. Again, go to the formula and again, go to that dark green and say equals to B3 is greater than 0.1. So the idea being, this formatting should be identical to that one, which it is. So now we've got a nice look there, and we can always double check here just to make sure that the colors look the same and all that. So if you ever want to go back, we can say, okay, I grabbed the second one below that bright green one for that other conditional formatting. So I can do that as well to make sure that it's consistent. So go back into this rule, don't click from here, click from here, and then add another rule, and now it's going to copy that setup there. So 0.05, in this case, you've got that, and again, second one from that bright green one, and we go back on here. We also got the white one if it's greater than or equal to 0. So again, go back in here, add another rule, greater than or equal to 0. Then we're just going to use the white paint bucket. Font is black. So we've got that. And again, let's add my equal sign. So I'm capturing if they're equal to those values as well. And the last one is, of course, the negative one. So go back in here, add another rule. And now less than 0, red, font is white, and the bucket is red. So you've got that preview there just to make sure it's looking how you want it to look. And so now drag this one to the top. And so I've got my formatting set up for my top and my bottom rows as well. So they're all linking to B3. Now what I can do is select these values, use the format painter to apply that to the other rules. So these are all 10%, still fine. Now we've got the darker formatting. And so I can copy these down. So all these ones are fairly high at more than 5%. So we're not seeing any other ones. But what I can do is still override this just to test it out. So let's say I change this to 1%. Change this to -5%, right? So the conditional formatting works. So I'm going to leave it intact. So in this case, I've got the trending tickers and I can see how they're doing on the day. So let's just make this header a bit bigger. And then make sure it's centered. And perhaps just do a dark green and a white hat. So just like that, I've got my trending tickers set up. So it took a little bit of time to set this up, but the setup process is just a one-time thing. And once you've got that, all this will automatically populate based on that data in this data tab, which comes from that Ape Wisdom website. But again, you can set up your own if you want your custom watch list. Next up, let's talk about putting in currency values in here. So let's say you want to track the US dollar versus the Canadian dollar. So for the currency pair, we can just type in USD CAD. And in the Google Finance function, this is basically just like a sort of like a ticker symbol as well, in the sense that we're just using the Google Finance function, selecting that value, and it's going to give us what that looks like right now. So a really easy way to pull that in. So if you're not sure, you can go to the Google Finance page and see what the correct setup is, but it should be fairly straightforward. You're just putting in the currency pairs into there. Now on my template, I also added a space for historical information. Like let's say I want to see what it was 1 month ago. I'm going to shrink this down just to make sure it fits here. Again, let's always center this, make sure it's aligned properly. And so now what I can do is actually make this a little bit bigger. Now what I can do is also use the Google Finance function to pull in the price from 1 month ago. So in this case, Google Finance, still use that same symbol. This time I'm going to specify the attribute because I need to fill in these conditions to pull in my historical data. So for the start date, I'm going to use the date function. And so it's got a year, month, and day argument. So for the year argument, I'm going to use the today function. And what that does is it basically says I'm pulling in the year that relates to today's date. So that way I don't have to manually update this. For the month argument, I'm going to use the month function and pull in the month from today's date. All right, so we've got that in there. And now close that out and -1. So I go 1 month back. For the day function, we'll again use the day and use the today function to get today's date. Close that out. So this can look a little bit messy, but I'm going to show you how that works. So we've got this in 2 rows and 2 columns. So to fix this, I'm going to put the index function before, and I'm just going to select the second row and the second column. So I've got that value from 1 month ago. And you'll notice as I was updating it, these trending tickers updated as well. So you can see that it is fairly up to date. So it's going to be updating based on when you make changes in your sheet, when Google Finance updates this. So we've got this, and let's always try to set up the alignment. So we've got 1 month ago, and let's say we want to look at the 1 month change. So I'm going to type in 1 month change. Let's also set this to size 7. And in this case, what I can do is take today's value divided by the value a month ago, -1, to get my percent change, convert that into there. And what may be helpful here is actually to spread out this row, resize it again. I like to set it up to 30, and then we can set up these headers so they're centered and they also wrap around. So that way we've got space there, and to make sure that it's all consistently set up. So I can set up the formatting the same way, size 8, use the format painter here. So we got the 1 month change. Let's also do a change for 6 months and also 12 months. 12 month, and let's call this percent change, so it's clear. So a lot of different metrics we can pull in just by doing this. And if I want to put this on a different line, I can hit Alt and Enter to force it on another line. So we've got that percentage onto that next line. Alt and Enter. So now it's a bit cleaner. So in this example, I put the month, the price from the previous month, but I can also merge this. So this 1 month change, it can all be in just one simple formula. So what I'm going to do is copy this value, copy this formula, put it in here. Instead of -1, I'm going to put -6. So get the value from 6 months ago. And before this, I'm going to take this current price, insert that, divide that by that value, -1 to get my percentage change. So I can see how that's changed over the past 6 months. And I can now repeat this for 12 months. Control C, Control V, change the 6 to a 12. And now we've got that set up. So we've got all those values in there. So it's just a matter of formatting this at this point and, however we want it to display. Set up our borders. And so it's easy to see this information. Perhaps use a bit of a darker red so it's not too bright. There we go. So now we've got our currency pairs, and just adjust it so the formatting is consistent. So we've got our currency information in there in addition to our trending tickers. So now let's do the same sort of thing, this time for Bitcoin. So I'm going to copy this, paste it down here. And so this I'm going to call Bitcoin. Now for the Bitcoin, these formulas are going to look a little bit different just because it's, we can't just type in Bitcoin and pull that in. So I'm gonna, instead of referencing this value, I'm gonna use the Google Finance function and type in currency BTC USD. So now it's gonna give me the price of Bitcoin here. So you could have the option of linking it to a cell somewhere else, so you don't have to hard code it each time, but I'm gonna type it in here anyways. So currency BTC USD. So I've got that. So I'm just gonna copy this value as my placeholder just to make sure that I've got the correct identifier. Whoops. So let's put that into quotes. I copied a bit too much. There we go. Now I've got, so let's make sure just copy currency BTC USD. And again, if you don't put it in quotes, it's not going to recognize what we're doing. So now we've got the 12-month change, the 6-month change, 1-month change, and how it was a month ago. We just want to set up the formatting. So we've got numbers here. So with the comma, but as you can see, really easy now to pull in a Bitcoin, how it was a month ago, the 1-month change, 6-month change, and the 12-month % change. Next up, I'm going to pull in the word of the day and its meaning. I'm going to show you this for a couple reasons. One, just to show you the variety of information we can pull in, but also how you can parse out just specifically the information that you want. And so in this example, I'm not going to import HTML. I'm going to import a feed. So I'm going to use the import feed function. So this is if you've got an RSS feed. So there is an RSS feed from the Merriam-Webster website, WOTD, word of the day. So we've got RSS2. So that is what that feed looks like. So you can do this for other RSS feeds as well. And so here's what it looks like. So obviously this is, not ideal for a page here. We've got a lot of entries in here. We've got the most recent day, we've got previous days as well. So this requires a bit of cleaning up. So the first value, I'm just going to pull in that most recent word. So that's going to be in the first row in the first column. So I'm going to use the index function to specify, I just want the first row and the first column. So now I've shrunk that down just to that specific word. Now, the tricky part is going to be getting that description, that meaning of that word into here as well. So if I were to copy this, and let's see, I'm not going to use the index function here for now. I'm just going to show you what that feed looks like and where we want to pull the data from. So we've got, this is the first column, the second one, the third, and the fourth. So it's in the fourth column, and we want the first row still. So let's go back to our original function, index. So we want the first row, that's the most recent word, and the fourth column, that contains the description. So a bit cleaner, but this is still too much. So when we're parsing out data to figure out what we need, we want to look for sort of indicators as to where our start and end points need to be. So if we look at this definition, we can see that the definition comes around here, explaining what it is. So I just want to pull in that definition. So what I'm looking for is the value that comes just before it. So we've got an asterisk here, and there's some spacing after this. I can't just look for an asterisk because obviously there's a lot of them in here. So what I'm going to do is pull in that space as well. And I'm just going to put in a blank space because in some cases these spaces are different, especially when you're pulling them in from different feeds or web pages. So to get precisely the exact space I need, what I'm going to do is use Control-C to copy this. And then over here, I'm going to do Control-Shift-V to copy this as values. So Control-C, Control-Shift-V to paste that as values. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to double click into here. And now, right after it says noun, and I've got this asterisk, this is the one I'm interested in. I'm going to copy this. And so you can see it grabs a tiny little bit of a space there. So that's what I want. So I'm going to hit Control-C to copy that. And now, what I'm going to do is up here, or off to the right here, I'm going to use the find function to say, okay, find that text. So paste it into there. And then the text to search is in here, starting from the first value. So it tells me it's in position 109. So it's fairly far into here. And I'm going to add +1 here to make sure that it's starting at the next available space. So position 110, that's going to be my starting point where that definition begins. The next thing I need is my ending point, because I don't want to grab all of this as well. I want to make this compact. So I notice at the end of the definition, I've got these 2 backslashes here. So that's going to be what I'm going to be looking for my endpoint. So again, I'm going to use the find function. In this case, just looking for these 2 backslashes. There's no other place where they appear to show up. So search this text, starting from value 1. So now I've got my starting point and my ending point. So 110 to 167. Now that I've got those values, now I can go back into here, and for my definition, I can pull that in using the mid function. So the string I'm going to pull the data from is here, and my starting point is going to be this 110, and then the length is going to be this endpoint minus the starting point. So if I've got it correctly, I've got that definition. I'm going to use the clean function as well, just to get rid of any blanks or any values that I don't need. So right now this is still not ideal, because as you can see, this is stretched out my page here. So I'm going to merge this, center it, and make sure it wraps around. Do the same thing here, center this, and so I've got that. So the one problem here is that this is fairly big, and so what I could do is shrink this down, this row, and what I've found is that it helps to also shrink this down to size 1, just to make sure that it doesn't by any chance stretch out your file here, your page. And what I can do is make this invisible, just set this text to white, so it's like it's not even there. And so now we've got that in here, and actually it's insert a row, so we've got our word of the day here. And I'm going to spread this out, merge it across, let's say a blue header. I'd font just so it's all spread out here. And I've got my nice header. And let's create an outline. So depending on the font you use, you may want to make this larger or smaller. But the key thing I wanted to show you is how we can spread this out, and how we can pull in this data from a very large a text sample, because the key thing is parsing out that data using that mid function to specify our starting and our endpoint. So we can use helper columns and values here, and by changing them to a white font, you don't even see that they're there. So it works fine that way, and that's an easy way you can parse out information you need. The key thing is to look for those start and end points to ensure you're getting them exactly where you want. So again, maybe just apply some formatting just to make this a little bit more, stands out a little bit more. So I've got the word of the day, perhaps make this a little bit darker. There we go. So now I've got my word of the day, got tickers. So all this information already in one single page. So to make sure it's visible, I may just want to make sure this is perhaps a size 12, so it's easier to read on a page. This looks to be a little bit big, and then let's shrink the header down, so that's not what's important here. So we've got our summary in there. Next up, I'm going to show you how you can pull in news articles from websites like CNBC, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, whatever you want to pull from. So if I just do a search for CNBC RSS feeds, I'll see all these different categories. So let's say I want to pull in business news. Click on that, and I'm just going to copy the URL for this page, and I'm going to go back in here and use the import feed function, just like I did for the word of the day. So I'm going to put in that URL. So that's the URL that I copied from there. And so we've got that. We've got all these articles in here. So we've got the title, we've got a URL, we've got a date, and the description, and a short summary as well. And to make this a bit cleaner, what I'm going to do is just put in the title and the summary, but I'm going to want to make it so that the title is clickable, so that if I see it on my phone and I think, okay, that's an interesting article, I want to read about it, I'm going to be able to click it on my phone and open it up, just to make it really easy to use. So I'm going to show you how we can set that up. So for the import feed function, we can specify different arguments. So for the query, I can say that I just want the item's title. So it's just going to give me the title. And then I don't need the headers, and I just want to pull 10 items. I don't want a huge list of news articles. And so just like that, I've got a list of just the titles into here. So really easy setup. So if I want to, I can put it in my header up here, title, and then for the next section, I'm going to put summary. So I'm going to spread this out just so it's a bit easier to read, and I'm going to fix the formatting later. But for now, I've got my title, and I'm going to copy this formula, and in the summary, type in items summary. So same link, everything else is the same. So now I've got my summary as well. So it's a bit cleaner and easier to read this way. So I'm going to select both of these values, and I'm going to actually spread these across. And also make sure that the text is wrapping. So I actually don't need to center in that case, just left a line there. And then after doing so, I can use the format painter to apply this to the other rows as well. And since the description, the summary can run long as well, I want to make sure I've got this merged across just these 3 columns, again, just to make sure that it doesn't go too far. And then what I can center it in the middle, make sure it's wrapping properly, and this can be left aligned as well. Use the format painter to apply that as well. And what I'll also do is create my outlines, create my borders. I didn't pick the right one here. I want to make sure I've got all the borders around. And then just to differentiate the summary from the title, perhaps make this a light green highlighting so it stands out a bit. And I'm going to shrink the size of this a little bit, just so it's not too large, and so it's easy to read. And then for the title and summary, also let's spread that across. And so it's easy to know what we're looking at here. Create my border, and perhaps make this a bit of a darker color so to differentiate. So we've got the title here, and we've got a brief summary on the right hand side. However, I still want to create my clickable link here. So what I need to do is use this feed one more time, this feed formula one more time, and this time I'm going to type in items URL. So I'm going to copy that into there, and let's put this over here. And actually what I'm going to do is copy this one, so I've got the items title here. So we've got our feeds, and again, I'm going to hide these in a second here. The point is to get the data right in here. And now that I've got that set up, I've got my title and my URL, I'm actually going to replace this with the hyperlink function. So I'm going to select the URL and then my title, my label right here. And so copy this down. And just to make this look a little bit cleaner, I'm going to get rid of some of that default formatting that comes with these URLs. So instead of blue, perhaps use a darker green. And let's maybe bold it, just so it's a bit easier to read. And one thing I don't like about these URLs is I don't like the underlining that comes with them. So I can just select all of them, hit Control U, and that will get rid of them. And now when I hover over them, you can see that the URLs are showing up on there. So if I can click on one of these and open this up. So this is really convenient if you're on your phone and you want to be able to click on one of these articles. So now I've got this, and let's hide this as well. Just make it a clear formatting. Really simple and easy to use. And now, so I've got this template that has my tickers, currency information, Bitcoin, word of the day, and trending articles, in this case from CNBC. But you can replicate this for other news sources as well. And so once you've got this template set up, it's really easy just to go from your phone, navigate to this Google Sheets page that you've set up, and then you can actually create a shortcut on your phone. And so I use this often just to click on that to see my dashboard. And I find myself using this a lot more often than just going to individual news outlets or following pages that have my my investments, I can follow that all in one place. So you can have one section that has trending tickers, perhaps one section that has a watch list, and one that has your investments. So you can have a lot of different snapshots all in one page. In Google Sheets, it's really easy to pull in all that data into one place in a summary. And by setting it up in a format like this, where it's compact, you can easily see this on your phone and scroll through it vertically, as opposed to having to open up a web page and go on it and making sure you see everything. By setting it up, the dimensions, the key thing is really to remember to make sure you've got these widths set up so that they're not too wide, that you have to scroll horizontally on your phone. You want to be able to easily swipe up and down on it so you can have a one-page summary that you can look through and easily access on your phone. And by setting up that link, that shortcut on your phone, it's easy to just click it up, open up, you'll see the latest stock changes, stock price changes, and all this other information that you want to track. So a really easy way to do that in Google Sheets. It can be a little bit tedious, especially setting up the conditional formatting and all these setups, but once you've got that, all that data is going to flow in automatically for you. There's no refresh you have to do. It's always going to be right there. So you just have to open up your sheet and you'll see it on there. So that wraps up this video. If you did like it, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. And if you have any comments or suggestions on how to improve this dashboard or what other things you may want to see, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.